Hi everyone, this is Wayne Bridges. In this presentation I'm going to discuss the consumer-oriented evaluation approach. According to the text, the consumer-oriented evaluation method is focused on meeting consumer needs and societal ideals more than achieving the developer's objectives for a given approach. This was introduced by Michael Scriven. Now, Scriven states that the consumer-oriented evaluation is used for several things. First off, for use in the professional designing, managing, monitoring, or evaluating of proposals or plans, projects, programs, processes, and policies, and for assessing the evaluability of these, for requesting proposals, for example, in writing requests for proposals, to do or to evaluate them, and for evaluating proposed, ongoing, or completed evaluations of those proposals. So products and evaluands are evaluated on the basis of processes, outcomes, comparative cost effectiveness, and exportability. And these are the major factors of or subcategories of evaluation in the key evaluation checklist, which is the centerpiece of the consumer-oriented method. Now, during the process of consumer-oriented evaluation, the evaluator draws on certain information from these areas in order to summarize how the evaluand performed as far as strengths and weaknesses of that evaluand, and particularly whether it was cost effective to the organization, to the customer. Let's take a look at a conceptual framework for the consumer-oriented method. And this is a very basic diagram. First, we have preliminaries and foundations, and this would include the things that we use to kick off an evaluation, meaning the executive summary, a preface, and the methodology to be used, as well as background and context for the evaluation, descriptions and definitions of any factors that are going to be key to the evaluation, the consumers, those who are the ultimate customer of the evaluation, the resources involved, and the values. And then in the center, we have a checklist. And this checklist is going to involve the sub-evaluations that we discussed in an earlier slide here. That's going to be the process of evaluation, the outcomes of the evaluation, the cost effectiveness, and the exportability, or how can it be transferred to other areas. And finally, we have conclusions. And conclusions in this case is going to be recommendations to the customer, responsibilities, reporting, and a meta-evaluation. Meta-evaluation here means an evaluation of the evaluation itself. How was the process used, and how could it be improved in future iterations? So let's take a look at a summary literature review. So first off, Scriven himself proposes that the consumer-oriented method, as mentioned earlier, is used for the professional designing, managing, monitoring, and evaluation of proposals, projects, programs, processes, policies, for evaluation of them, and for writing proposals, and for evaluating completed evaluations. Further, Fitzpatrick and Associates, Fitzpatrick et al., state that Scriven's consumer-oriented method could be used to determine whether a curriculum represents an advance on the available alternatives and whether it can be cost justified for adoption. So here we see this applied to curriculum and whether it's cost effective to adopt a specific curriculum. Other big commenters on the consumer-oriented method are Stufflebean and Shinkville, and they criticized the summative-only approach to evaluation, and specifically in their 2007 piece said, both formative and summative evaluation are needed in the development of a product or service, and too often summative evaluation is carried out only for judging programs, which restricts the development processes. The next piece of literature I used for this presentation was from Ross. This was an Auburn University piece, and Ross reminds us that although the consumer-oriented approach is based on a single summative evaluation, that programs in schools can be considered formative in the name of ongoing improvement. And finally, Davidson provides a graphically organized representation of Scriven's key evaluation checklist. Now, Scriven's checklist, the most recent iteration being 2015, this was a piece by Davidson. It actually took an earlier model of the key evaluation checklist, but it breaks it down into a more visual guide to performing the evaluation. So we see a one-pager, if you will, of how to use the key evaluation checklist to perform a consumer-oriented evaluation. So strengths of the consumer-oriented evaluation method, first off, provides a valuable summative information for making a decision about whether or not a certain product is cost-effective for the organization. And secondly, because it is using the key evaluation checklist, which is a standardized instrument for the evaluation, it can contain little bias. Limitations of this method. Consumer-oriented evaluation is based strictly upon that summative judgment of the product. So the focus isn't on continual improvement of the product, but more on an overall judgment of value to the organization, to the customer. So in summary, the consumer-oriented evaluation model is very good for offering a summative critique or determining feasibility of a program or other evaluand. It's not best suited for other use cases such as incremental process or program improvement. And finally, these are the references that were used in creating this presentation. I want to thank you for your time. Please contact me with any questions.